A witness in the Life Esidimeni arbitration hearing has admitted to having no experience to care for mentally ill patients. Dorothy Franks told the hearings today that she had registered the Anchor House as a non-profit organization to care for mentally ill patients despite having no qualifications to run such a facility. Franks says the patients came to her facility at the instruction of health authorities. She says the patients had no IDs or medical records. She also said that the NGO was shut down in October last year following the death of patients at the facility. And when asked what she did with the bodies, Franks said the bodies were taken to a mortuary at Mamelodi Hospital. She admitted to having failed to contact family members of some of the deceased, saying that there were no contact details in the files.
And you decided to register your own NGO?
Yes, Justice.
And you called it Anchor Center?
Yes, Justice.
And was your plan to operate separate and away from your employer of the time?
Yes, Justice.
But you had no qualifications, you've already told us,
Yes, Justice.
of taking care of mentally ill patients.
You had said that they advised you to go and look at premises. Who are these they, and when did they told you to do so?
It's, as I'm saying, I know it's in May, early May, and it was Anna Jacobus and Dr. Malamela.
Okay.
Well, it is time now to go live to the Life Esidimeni arbitration hearing still underway.
Yes, Councillor.
This is the affidavit of Bongane Sitole, who was the brother of the late Bekumuzi Robert Sitole. And it's not necessary to go through the affidavit in detail. I'll highlight the key aspects of it for you. Mr. Sitole states that he knew that his brother was going to be discharged from Life Esidimeni, but the next he heard about his brother was the call that he had passed away. And I'd just like to read to you from paragraph 7 of the affidavit, which starts at page 3020. He says, on 18 July, I received a call from a woman who identified herself as Dorothy. She called from the number 072-803-0302. She told me that Becky was dead and he was at the morgue at Mamelodi Hospital and I must go collect him. I went to Mamelodi the next day, 19 July. I arrived in the morning and spoke to the receptionist. Dorothy was not there. I got in contact with her and she said she would come by at 15 o'clock. She never arrived. Eventually, I spoke to a person working in the morgue and he said that because Dorothy was not there to provide Becky's ID, I should go to the police station to make an affidavit. I did so. When I saw Becky, he had a bandage on his head and bruises on his shoulder, arm, and leg. I took Becky and we made funeral arrangements and buried Becky. Our whole family was devastated. I'd like you then to turn to page 3027. Which is Mr. Sitole's notice of death. And if you could have next to you to compare ELAH 51. ELAH 51 includes Robert Sitole as one of the people who passed away at Anchor and lists lung infection as type of death, or I would assume cause of death. The death notice on page 3027 states that the cause of death in the middle is cardiopulmonary. I'm sorry, I can't actually read the cause of death. Thanks. Okay.
Sorry.
the cause of death, although not easily legible, lists some cardiopulmonary arrest. And then on the next line, unfortunately the first word is illegible, but then it reads lung disease. So that appears to be consistent with ELAH 51, lung infection. So I'd like to get your comments on a few things, Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
The first is, would you agree with me that a death caused by lung infection is consistent with an environment of neglect?
Environment meaningly?
Would you agree with me that if the patients had been in a well-ventilated, healthy environment, that the risk of lung disease could have been controlled?
I really don't know about that.
So if I say to you that the cause of death was related to the neglect of Mr. Sitole, would you agree or disagree?
I really disagree because I didn't see it in that sense.
How did you see
Because
it?
there was air conditioners. And he was warm enough.
And so your indication is that you disagree with that proposition?
Yes, because I didn't see it in that sense, because we were really looking after them.
Okay.
Well, whatever the cause was, you had no skills and knowledge to deal with it, isn't it? Counsel, we're dealing with somebody who has no proficiency in the particular area.
Yes, Justice.
No amount of proposition like that would take us anywhere, isn't it so? You undertook a work that you really knew, frankly, nothing about.
Okay, but as I said, the nurses was there for Cullinan and for base copies.
What will the nurse do with the cardiovascular arrest? You tell me.
Okay, they should have picked it up and then reported it.
They should have picked it up and
Yes.
reported it. And why did you do this? Why did you gamble with other people's lives? Take them in and say, I can look after you, and well over $1 million, take their grant money, and they die in your hands. Why did you do that? Without a proper license, at the wrong premises, without professional staff, without their medical records, but you just went on and end month after month. And you want us to believe you are innocent. How do we get to that conclusion? Is there any response from you?
I really don't have, because as I'm saying, as far as I know, we actually try to keep them in a healthy condition.
And you failed here, didn't you? At least 5 people died in your hands in 3 months. Do you think that's a great record? It's a great outcome?
No. No,
And
Justice.
I was just thinking over lunch, why did you simply go ahead and put female patients and male patients all in one ward?
Actually, they was put in there by health, because
They were pushing you.
health department, yes.
Come again?
Health department brought them in, and we just have to separate them in different.
Yeah, but you were happy to go along and to charge a fee and file claim forms. Why didn't you say this is wrong?
We were really pressurized on that.
And what about your Christian values? I mean, here human beings are vulnerable, and you realize on your evidence that the harm might come to them. Why don't you do the right thing? Rather than just take the money month after month after month, long after your contract, continue just drawing money. Why did you do that? And not do the right thing and say, I can't do this, these people are at risk, they're human beings, they have dignity, they deserve to be looked after in the proper place. Why didn't that come to your mind?
Okay, there was things that we said to help, because if in the one ward, they must help us in all the way, and they said, like, sometimes the air conditioners doesn't go on, sometimes
I don't know what you're saying. I said to you, why didn't you put your foot down and say, I won't do something that would lead to the death of other people?
As you're saying, I should have done that, and I didn't.
Yes, but the question is, why didn't you do it? And if you did that, you would have stopped earning, isn't it?
It's righteous.
That is right, isn't it?
It's
What was your answer?
justice.
Yes.
I should have done that.
Yes. And did you draw money of grants on patients who had died? Isn't it? You continue drawing money of patients who had died. What is your answer?
Oh, yes, just.
I can hear no answer. Do you
Yes,
want to
just.
answer the question?
Yes,
Yes.
but I couldn't help. I was working
Counsel.
on that.
Thank you, Justice. Before we move on, Mrs. Franks, you said to the Justice we were really pressurized. Who pressurized you?
The health department came and they said, you must do this, you must do that, you must... And
Who in the health department?
Okay, every time when they come and do an inspection, it's Dr. Malamela, and the MEC was also there once.
So you were pressurized by the MEC and Dr. Manamela?
Yes, that you must just do as they say.
And your testimony is that you didn't resist that pressure because you were scared that you would stop earning?
My testimony is that I had workers there to be paid.
You had workers to be paid?
That's right. The workers was not paid for 3 months.
And you're saying that you weren't worried that you would stop receiving money for your own benefit from the Department of Health?
Well,
Or to put it differently, my proposition is that your concern was that you would stop receiving money and benefiting from the Department of Health.
let me just get it clear.
You didn't resist that pressure from Dr. Manamela and MEC Mahlangu, because if you had done so, if you had said no, you would have
Yes.
stopped receiving money for your own benefit.
I
Yes.
should
The
have
witness
stopped
has said
it.
yes
Okay.
already.
I should
Thank
have
you.
stopped it, yes.
I'd like to take you then to file 10. I think if somebody could assist you to get that file.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor.
And to turn to page 3382.
Yes, Councillor.
This is the affidavit we referred to it earlier of Tamsanqa Philip Mtembu, who was the brother of Emily Mtembu. And Emily, like other patients, her family did not know where she had been transferred to, but eventually her family found her at Anchor. And I'd like to read to you from paragraph 16 of that affidavit, which is at page 3385. Tandy and I went to CCRC at the end of April.
3385.
3385.
Yes, Councillor.
Tandy and I went to CCRC at the end of April. We discovered that Emily was, at the time, in the hospital section of the facility as she was not feeling well, but that she had been placed at Anchor NGO within the CCRC. Emily was clean and smelt good, but was screaming and would not allow us to touch her. We didn't know what was wrong, but I found the screaming very disturbing.
Just come out of those live visuals. Dorothy Franks is still testifying at the Life is Many arbitration hearings. She already admitted to having no experience with working with mentally ill patients, and she just a minute ago admitted to still receiving money after the people have been deceased.
She ate all of them, one after the other.